Hi class, this presentation is on my personal therapy model and paradigm, and I draw from three schools of thought in the work that I do. The first is Adlerian, the second is developmental, and the third is existential. I like Adlerian because Adler, I believe, was a holistic theory, and part of me is a teacher, and he emphasized psychoeducation in his model in addition to tying in well to developmental aspects, and I enjoy the subject of human development, and so developmentally I take a look at where a person currently is chronologically, and then I also take a look at where they should be according to their age, and then the existential component ties in spirituality for me because I believe that people are inherently spiritual and are seeking meaning and purpose in their life, and that allows me to ask questions of how and why and meaning and purpose. Adler's view of humans was as a unified whole. He did not believe that you could separate out the parts and end up with an accurate picture of the person. Let me read from his book on superiority. This is found on page 30. This knowledge, the view of the human person as a whole, cannot be comprehended immediately. It cannot be found through an analysis of the visible phenomena and facts, as altogether something new can never be created through analysis. Here we would have parts in our hands instead of the whole. To us individual psychologists, the whole tells us much more than the analysis of the parts. Also, nothing new can emerge through this synthesis if one simply puts together the parts. Hence, he didn't believe in separating the person, but rather seeing them as a whole entity. So with the three schools of thought, Adlerian, developmental, and existential, and Adler's view of humans, I've developed a paradigm for myself personally that guides the work that I do, and it is as follows. From the foundation you have received, build yourself and be built, with something to do, others to love, and something to believe in. So let me unpack that for you. The first phrase, from the foundation you have received, brings in the developmental component for me of early childhood. We can't choose the families that we're in or the parents that we've been given. So in a sense, the foundation, the family of origin, is something that we have received and been given. And that foundation, both in ourselves and our clients, is what we have to work with as we try to build the house of self. This foundation would also include, from a spiritual perspective, the God-given part of ourselves, our genes, and our personality. Next, build yourself and be built. The building process is a two-way road. We take action and build ourselves, yet we allow ourselves to be built by God and those we come in contact with. I look at Philippians 2:12 through 13. Continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. In Ephesians 2:22, and in him you too are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by his Spirit. I also draw from William Glasser, who speaks in terms of responsibility and need meeting. Within his conceptualization are the ideas of action on the part of the individual in reciprocal relationships. Next is with something to do, and in Adler's work this was the striving for superiority. And let me quote from his book again on page 31. Individual psychology points out that every individual is seized by this striving for perfection, that we find it in every individual. It is not necessarily first to inoculate man with the desire to develop into Superman. Individual psychology has shown that every individual is seized by this striving for perfection, by this upward striving. Glasser also saw the need to feel worthwhile as one of the two basic psychological needs. This concept dovetails well with the idea that we are gifted by God and that we seek to know those gifts and apply them in service to others. Last is others to love, and this was Adler's social interest. Adler's concept of social interest, although complex and multidimensional, intersects with this concept. He believed that over the long term, humankind inevitably works for the betterment of the community. But foundational to his concept of social interest was the need for humans to be in community. Again, let me quote from his book on superiority, page 37. Like the character traits which depend on it, social interest can come to life in the social context. Glasser saw the need to be in relationship as one of the two basic needs. He believed these needs were universal, not culture-bound. Helping clients to fulfill these needs was the basis for his therapeutic style. And in his book on reality therapy, page 9, psychiatry must be concerned with the two basic psychological needs, the need to love and be loved, and the need to feel that we are worthwhile to ourselves and to others. Obviously, the concept of love and relationships is also basic to theology. In Matthew 22:39 and again in Mark 12:39, the commandment to love one's neighbor is listed as one of the two great commandments. But a passage which has even greater impact for me personally is found in John 13:35. Here Christ instructs the disciples that there will be one thing distinguishing them from others, if we love one another. So, I'll read my paradigm to you again. From the foundation you have received, build yourself and be built, with something to do, others to love, and something to believe in. I believe this paradigm ties together the three schools of thought from which I draw, which again are Adlerian, developmental, and existential. I stopped too soon. I left the last phrase off my paradigm, something to believe in, and for Adler this was lifestyle. For Adler, there was a guiding whole by which the individual interpreted his life. Judgments and behaviors are subordinate to this lifestyle. It's the thing that the person believes in. It is the individual's basic orientation to life and the themes which characterize the individual's existence. Don Dinkmeyer, an Adlerian psychologist, stated that everything we do in life is influenced by our unique style, which is assumed to be formulated during the first 6 years. It is not the first 6 years, however, which are seen as important, but rather the present interpretation of these events. Belief, of course, is a significant part of faith. Throughout both the Hebrew and Greek scriptures, the people of God are instructed to believe, which will have a great impact on their life. From Moses to Abraham needing to believe in the promises of God, to Thomas and the disciples trusting in the manifestation of God in Christ, belief gives people the motivation to carry on. Biblically, this belief is in something transcendent, God. God is larger than our problems and gives meaning to our joy and pain and brings order to chaos. So there is the conclusion. From the foundation you have received, build yourself and be built, with something to do, others to love, and something to believe in.